This is Dawn Miller, Mrs. Miller, as most of you have come to know me. I thought I would try something different today, and I thought I would read you the story of Black Beauty. And instead of looking at me, you can look at all the beautiful pictures that were illustrated by Phoebe Erickson. Black Beauty is a book written by Anna Sewell. Excuse me. This one is just a shortened version, and it's really beautiful. It's one of my favorite books, excuse me, as I was growing up, and I hope it becomes one of your favorites too. All right, I hope you enjoy it. Black Beauty. The first place Black Beauty could remember was a big green meadow where there were other young horses like himself, and of course his mother, whose name was Duchess. Their master, Farmer Gray, was a good, kind man who lived near by in a house by the roadside. Black Beauty loved to run by his mother's side, drink her warm milk, and lie down close to her at night. As soon as he was old enough to eat grass, his mother went out to work in the daytime and left him to play in the meadow. But she always came back to him before dark. The other colts in the meadow were older than Black Beauty. He used to run with them, and they all had fun playing together, galloping around the field as hard as they could go. Sometimes, though, the colts would bite and kick as well as gallop. One day, when the colts had been very rough in their play, Duchess whinnied to Black Beauty to come to her. "I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say," she told him. "The colts who lived here are good colts, but they have not learned manners. Your father was a fine horse, and your grandfather won important races. Your grandmother had the sweetest temper of any horse I ever knew, and I think you have never seen me kick or bite. I hope you will grow up gentle and good and never learn bad ways. Do your work with a good will, lift up your feet when you trot, and never bite or kick, even in play." Black Beauty hung his head at this gentle scolding, but he never forgot his mother's words. He knew she was a wise old horse, and that the master was very fond of her. The master gave all his horses good food and a comfortable place to live, and spoke kindly to them, but Duchess and Black Beauty were his favorites. There was a farm boy, Dick, who worked for Farmer Gray, and sometimes came into the field to pick blackberries from the hedge. When he had eaten all he wanted, he would have what he called fun with the colts, throwing stones and sticks at them to make them gallop. Sometimes the stones hurt them. One day he was at this game and did not know that the master was in the next field, watching him. Over the hedge the master jumped, and catching Dick by the arm, gave him a good shaking. Black Beauty and the other colts trotted up nearer to see what was going on. "Bad boy," the master was saying, "bad boy to chase the colts. Here, take your money and go home. I do not want you working on my farm." So the colts never saw Dick any more. Old Daniel, who looked after them, was just as gentle as the master, so the colts were well cared for and contented. Several years passed, and Black Beauty was beginning to grow into a handsome young horse. His coat, which was bright black, had become fine and soft. He had one white foot and a pretty white star on his forehead. "You are well named, Black Beauty," the master said to him one day, "for you are as black as you are beautiful. But I shall not sell you until I have broken you in. Boys ought not to work like men, and colts ought not to work like horses until they are quite grown up." When Black Beauty was 4 years old, a man came to look at him. The man's name was Squire Gordon. He examined Black Beauty all over, and then said, "I like him. When he has been well broken in, I shall buy him." The master said he would break Black Beauty in himself, as he would not want him to be frightened or hurt. So the very next day Black Beauty began learning what was meant by broken in. He had, of course, been used to being led about the fields and lanes by a halter, but now he was to have a bit and a bridle. The bit, thought Black Beauty, was a nasty thing. It was a great piece of cold, hard steel that was pushed into his mouth between his teeth and over his tongue, with the ends coming out at the corners of his mouth and held there fast by straps over his head, under his throat and around his nose and under his chin. Black Beauty hated it at first, but what with his master's pats, kind words, and gentle ways, he soon got used to wearing his bit and bridle. Black Beauty was also taught to carry a person on his back and to go quietly just the way his rider wanted him to go. He had to learn to wear a harness and stand still while it was being put on, and to pull a cart around behind him. He had to learn not to be frightened by strange things he saw on the road. As part of his training, Black Beauty was sent away for a couple of weeks to live in a meadow near a railway track. Some sheep and cows were there, and Black Beauty was turned in among them. At first, the trains nearly scared the little horse out of his wits. What a great black monster that came shrieking and puffing out of nowhere! Then he heard it. Black Beauty galloped to the other side of the field and stood trembling and snorting. But as the other trains went by and he saw that they never came into the field or tried to hurt him, he began to get used to them, as the cows and sheep were. And so, thanks to his wise master's training, Black Beauty never again had any fear of steam engines or trains. The master trained Black Beauty in other ways, too. He often drove him in double harness with his mother, for Duchess was a steady mare and could teach him how to go better than a strange horse might. Duchess tried to give her son good advice. "The better you behave, the better you will be treated," she said. "But I'm sorry to tell you that there are many kinds of men. There are good, thoughtful men like our master, and there are others who are cruel and bad, and some who are foolish and careless. I hope you will fall into good hands, but wherever you go and whatever kind of master you get, always do your best." And so, on a bright and sunny day in May, when Black Beauty had been thoroughly broken in, a man came to take him to his new home at Squire Gordon's in Birtwick Park. "Goodbye, Black Beauty," said the master. "Be a good horse." Black Beauty could not say goodbye, so he put his nose into the master's hand. The master patted him kindly, and then Black Beauty left for his first home. At Birtwick's Park, the stable was big and airy, with 4 good stalls in it. The first stall was the biggest, and into this fine box the groom led Black Beauty, gave him some oats, patted him kindly, and left him. After he had eaten the good oats, Black Beauty looked around. In the next stall stood a little fat gray pony. "How do you do?" said Black Beauty. "What is your name?" "My name is Merrylegs," said the pony. "Are you going to live next door to me?" "Yes," said Black Beauty. "Well then," Merrylegs said, "I hope you are good-tempered. I don't like anyone next door who bites." Just then the head of a tall chestnut mare came up from the stall beyond. The ears were laid back, and there was an ill-tempered look in her eyes. "So, you're the one who's turned me out of my stall," she exclaimed. "A colt like you turning a lady out of her own home." "I beg your pardon," said Black Beauty. "I haven't turned anybody out. The man who brought me here put me here. And as to my being a colt, I'm 4 years old, and I'm a grown-up horse. I've never had a quarrel with anybody, and it is my wish to live at peace." The mare said, "We shall see," and turned her back. Later that day, when she was out of the stable, Merrylegs told Black Beauty all about her. "The trouble is that Ginger has a bad habit of biting and snapping. When she was in your box, she used to snap so much that Miss Flora and Miss Jessie were afraid to come into the stable. They are very fond of me, and I hope they will come again now, if you do not bite or snap." Black Beauty told Merrylegs that he'd never bit anything but grass, hay, and corn. "It's just a bad habit with Ginger," Merrylegs went on. "She says no one was ever good to her, and why shouldn't she bite? People must have been very unkind to her before she came here, but perhaps she will be good-tempered from now on. You'll see," he said with a wise look. "I'm 12 years old, and I can tell you there isn't a better place in the country for a horse than this, so it's all Ginger's fault that she didn't stay in that box." In a very short time, Black Beauty felt quite at home among his new friends at Birtwick Park. John the groom seemed to know just how a horse feels, and when he cleaned Black Beauty, He knew that the tender places and the ticklish places. James, the stable boy, was just as pleasant and gentle in his way. And of course there was Merrylegs, who was so cheerful, plucky, and good-tempered. Miss Jessie and Miss Flora used to ride him about in the orchard and have fine games with him and their little dog Frisky. Not long after his arrival, Black Beauty was taken out with Ginger to pull the carriage. He wondered how they would get on together, but she behaved very well. When they went up a hill, instead of slowing down, she would throw her weight forward and pull straight ahead. After they had been out 2 or 3 times together, they grew quite friendly. One day, when Ginger and Black Beauty were standing alone in the shade, Ginger asked Black Beauty to tell her all about his bringing up and breaking in. When he had finished, she said sadly, "You're lucky. If I had been treated like that, I might have had as good a temper as you." Then she told Black Beauty how before she came to Birtwick Park to live, she had been forced by a check rein to hold her head up too high for hours at a time, and to wear 2 sharp bits in her mouth instead of 1, and how she had been whipped. Black Beauty felt very sorry for her. As the weeks went by, and she got only good treatment from John and James, he noticed that she began to lose her scary, suspicious look and grow much more gentle and cheerful. And we're going to stop right there. And I will read you the rest in a little while.